Oh, there you go. Couple more minutes. Yeah, it's up here. We needed like 1 minute last time. Give 1 minute increments. Yeah. 59 more minutes. Yeah. You've seen this one before, but I changed some stuff. Yeah. I changed some stuff for you. So you're in a better light this time. So. I don't got time to make a new one right now, so use this one. All right, we're gonna get started here because after this, we all wanna go to lunch. So we don't want to delay that. So my name is Cory Walters. I am the drive coach for FRC 2767 out of First in Michigan. I've been involved in First since around 2002. My older brother joined the team. My parents mentor, now just some middle school punk that got dragged to all this stuff. So I've seen a lot of FRC. I've seen the Beatties. I've seen all that in the Midwest area. I joined my high school team in 2005 and drove for them from 2006 to 2008. In college, I went and helped start a rookie team, which is a terrible idea to do. But I've been on teams where our budget was $1,000, so I've been on both ends of the spectrum. I have been the rookie team, and I have been where I am now with huge resources, right? Then went to Kalamazoo and joined Strikeforce in 2013 and coached for them up until today and foremost. Some accolades up there. We've won Worlds a couple times. Last year we won Hopper with some of your New England friends, as long as we finally won our district championship, which took way too long to do. So first thing I'm gonna do is kind of go through our process of like choosing a driver and defining those roles as far as what's going on. So your driver, your primary driver for your machine, they're gonna have tunnel vision on what's going on. They don't care about the clock. They don't care about what's going on with their alliance partners too much. They are just need to be like super dialed into what they got going on. Your operator needs to kind of be quiet, and they need to listen to the driver, especially if you're running an operator. And this has changed dramatically since I did this presentation 2 years ago. A lot of teams are getting rid of the operator because there's having one conscious stream of thought to execute stuff is making robots faster. But you have to have the technology on the back end to make that happen. There's a lot more automation that has to take place. But when there is an operator in place for us, they deal with all the internal components. So when you have an elevator or you're trying to move game pieces within inside, that's the operator's job. The driver deals with anything that interfaces with the field. So the driver picks up the game pieces, the driver scores the game pieces. They're not telling the operator to do those things. You want the driver to have that thought because you don't want the driver saying, all right, operator, it's time to shoot the ball. You don't want that. It takes too long. Human player changes year to year. There is stories of teams recruiting basketball players to come in and shoot balls because none of their robotics kids were that good at it. But the task changes year after year. Sometimes they can help look on the field for major things. Maybe there's a game piece against a wall. Maybe you can't see what's going on with the robot. They might help you climb. But this role flexes dramatically year after year, all depending on what the game is going to be. And then there's the coach position. But since there's no kids in the room, this is essentially what the majority of us in here probably do at some point. They have the big field vision of what's going on. Where are the game pieces? What are my alliance partners doing? What are they missing? And the drive coach needs to have the foresight of what's happening in the match. Are we going to hit the ranking points? Are we not going to hit the ranking points? And at least for on our team, the coach is the shot caller. So they make the call on the field. If we're going to do another game piece, if we're going to go score, the coach makes that decision. And then when you get back to the thing, I think heard in other presentations, the coach can also like be the shield to the drive team if issues come up. So if the driver made a mistake, the coach, I try to isolate the drive team from all the other team dynamics that's going on. So some quotes that come up, you know, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, no wasted moves. This is a really good graph of like practice time and performance. Yeah? You guys are okay, right? The more you practice, the more you're going to perform on the field. Now, this can vary depending on what resources you have. So even driving in a hallway is important. A really good driver can make a mediocre robot excellent. An excellent robot with a mediocre driver won't. The human driver can make huge guides and huge strengths in the robot just because they're a better driver and they can maximize that machine. So, how do we go about selecting a drive team? The driver, if they sign up for it, the requirement from us is that you have to come to all the competitions. You better be really sick if you're not going to be there. So they got to be able to come to all the competitions. We treat them like the quarterback on a football team. They are the most important player on the field. Okay? They're going to have to put in extra time, so they're going to have to come and do practice before or during sessions. I've heard some teams have people drive during lunchtime at the school. So they got to put in extra time to get the reps in for driving. Naturally, your driver ends up becoming the leader of the drive team. They end up becoming leaders within the team. They're also they have the most interaction with other teams, right? They're going to the quals, they're going and doing the match strategy, so they also got to represent your team well. You don't want them going up and not being a good spokesperson for yourself. Lots of resources out there, but the drive team's got to know the rules inside and out because they got to go to the question box, they got to play the game. There's a lot of great resources out there of teams putting up tests and quizzes for them. But even when team updates come out, like quiz them on those team updates too. The rules are different when we get them in January to when the team updates come. When a driver is getting selected, there is a hard conversation with their parent or whoever's in charge of them, their guardian. The parents need to be on board just as much as the driver is. If the parents can't transport them to the events and they can't support the student in the role they're about to play, that unfortunately is going to affect them, right? If they don't have good mode of transportation, if the parents aren't going to beam to events on time, that's going to matter. So make sure the parents know what they're signing up for from the student side. You can train a student how to be a good driver, but you can't really change their mindset. I can teach a kid how to drive a robot, but I can't change them mentally as fast. So make sure like they can take the criticism and that they're willing to like grow in that role. But you can teach some fundamentals and make sure like their headspace is in the right spot for that role. And that starts like day one when I meet the students. That isn't like a test that happens when it's going on. It's like the moment they walk in our door, they're essentially being evaluated day one. Even into the pipeline programs that we have coming up through middle school, we're evaluating those kids. Could they be a good driver? Do they have the mindset? They don't know that. They don't think they're being evaluated at that time, but that's where we start at. Okay, so this is a qualification one. We'll go into one later that's more about Saturday afternoon. When we go into qualifications matches for our team at least, I don't always attend those qualification drivers meetings. I try to let my students go do that. It's more disarming if I don't attend, right? There's definitely a pre-match discussion with my drivers and like, hey, we're about to go in this match. Let's check these things out. Let's try and drive the strategy this way with our alliance members. But if they're going to go into a qualification match that they know that there's teams that act differently, then they can ask me to come in or I can come in later. But I try to make that a student-driven qualification discussion. But there's like a discussion with us before that happens. So as far as what you're looking for, first thing, you're trying to find the strength within your alliance. So what are your partners good at? If they're really good at L1, we're going to stick with this year's games terminology because we're all very familiar with it. But are they really good at L1 and L2 but not good at L3? Play to your alliance's strength that are on your team. Don't put them in positions that they're not comfortable in. Once you find their strengths, figure out where their strengths can bring value. If they're really good at getting balls in the processor, that's their strength, and that can give your alliance value, do that, right? If they don't feel comfortable going to the backside of the reef, don't send them there. You do that. You go do the hard thing. That way they can get more value and strength out of themselves. After you figure out your value and your strengths, figure out how to win, if you can pull that out. Sometimes that's not always the case, and if you can't ever always get the win, figure out how you can get the most ranking points out of it. So you might come into a match and you look at Robotics and you're like, oh, we have a 20% of winning. And your drive team's like, we're going to lose. And then you're like, no, fine, but like, let's get 3 RP out of it, right? Don't be bummed out on a match. We're going to get tough schedules, especially in some smaller districts as most of us are, or are going to be. You have 32 teams, you're going to play with a lot of people. Things you can control. And the cool thing about most of this presentation, resources and money don't matter. This is just skill development. When you're doing your qualification matches and in your elims, you can plan out your first 20 seconds pretty flawlessly. After 20 seconds, it's anybody's game. But your first 20 seconds should be scripted and planned out every time. So this is what we did, and we'll watch a video in a little bit of it happening. But this is where all the teams end in auto. Where's everybody's first move going, and how are you staying out of each other's way? So the triangle is going far to get cubes, the circle is going to get cubes over there, and the square is going to come around, and they're actually going to play defense on the other end of that. But then we're going to watch a video, but like, script the first 20 seconds. But we'll also talk later about how that's a bad thing later. But for the most part, script the first 20 seconds. Endgame assignments. We're going through this quick because I want to get to the videos here. When you get to the field, you have driver stations 1, 2, and 3. 3 looks totally different than 1, and 2 looks totally different than 3. When you're trying to figure out endgame, you still want to script it, but again, everyone's in random places. But assign who is going to go where. What cages are they going to be on? Where are they going to balance on the teeter-totter? What change are they going to climb to do the trap? And if you're going to do double. So assign end games, but this is dependent on what driver station you're in and what sight lines you have to see what's going on. Also talk about when you're going to go do these things. Are you going to go climb at 10? Are you going to go climb at 15? Are you going to go climb at 20? And I'll keep an eye on the score. So if we're up and the match is won at 30 seconds, go climb. Go get that last RP. Don't miss it. If it's a close game and you got to push it, fine. But figure out a time when you're going to go and make sure it's worth the value on points. So there is some places where you could climb and get that points, or you can go score that last coral and get that ranking point off the reef. So figure out what's the most value in those last 20 seconds to execute on. And that's the discussion you should be having with your drive team long before you get to the events. Hey guys, if this is a situation, where should we go? Where should we find the most value in our operations? Some of it might be trying to stop other people. You know, if they're on far side of the field and you can hold them up because they're out of position. We saw it a lot in 2024 and like rope chicken in 2017. If you can slow them down, there's value there. If you don't have a climber, can you stop somebody else from climbing? So, I might have to get a mouse. Hold on. We don't want audio because we don't need to hear them. And this started way too far. Okay, so red, get out of here. We're just gonna look at the red here on the bottom. You see 4272s climbing on the right cage. Jack in the bottom Mattown are gonna do their craziness and they're gonna do the last L1s. But again, they don't need to. They're up by 60 points. They could just climb. And they go. But this is all of this in the bottom. When they went to climb, that's all dictated by driver stations. It's all dictated by where they're at and what they can see, and that's all pre-planned. So going into a match, get through all those. Okay. If you have scouting reports, gather that data. Don't get bogged down in it either. There's some information that you are collecting for pick lists that is not important for qualification rounds. So get what you need as a drive coach and your bare minimum for your drive team to do a qualification match. Don't bog them down in tons of information. Take the drive teams, gather them in a quiet spot, talk with them, make sure everyone's on the same page, discuss your teleop, discuss your auto, what they want to get done. When you get into queue, confirm with them what you're going to do because they might have forgotten, or the people they sent to your drive team meeting isn't actually on the drive team because they're changing drivers. That's all fine, but in queue at that point, you're locked in, confirm what you're doing, or at least a minimum, like where the end game is, or hey, are you sure you're running that auto that's trying to drive across the line so we don't miss a ranking point? As much as you can, be ready to change the strategy. You could plan till the end of time on what to do in all situations, but think on your own. If they can't get this part of the reef done, how are you going to adapt? If somebody gets stuck on a ball, what are you going to do? So just be ready to change things. When it's all done, give everybody high fives. Give them all good times. That is the only interaction you're probably going to have with those teams. And if they end up being a captain or a first pick, or they're thinking about picking you, you want that interaction to be positive because that is the most impactful experience that team is going to have with you at that time. So don't leave the field in, disgruntled manner with other people. Make sure everyone's got a clean slate with what's going on. Reflect and move on. We'll go later into about how we do video review, but don't let your drive team dread that last match too long because you need to go on to the next one. Saturday afternoon's a bit different when you get into your alliance members. You can be a lot more transparent now with what's going on. I like to ask, what is the worst thing that can happen to your robot? Can a coral get stuck in you? Are you vulnerable to driving sideways and your tread's coming off? Can you get high on allergies or certain things you don't want to do? Don't put your alliance members in that spot. But now's the time to be totally transparent with your alliance partners on what your biggest weakness is that you didn't want people in qualifications to know. So at this point, it don't matter because you're with them the rest of the day anyways. Okay? Find your alliance's strengths and weakness, play to them, make sure they go eat lunch and they go drink water. I've been guilty of this at times of not eating lunch and just going through the day. Make sure they drink water and they hydrate. They're dehydrated, they just don't know it yet. And don't start thinking about how you need to beat a certain alliance 2 hours from now. Take it one match at a time. Who are you playing against? Focus on that. Too many times students want to go figure out, I got to figure out how to beat these guys down the line, number one alliance. Stop it. Just execute what's in front of you at that time. And whatever you do, try to make it consistent. Don't change that strategy too much over the day. Just keep executing at what you're doing. And anytime you can put contingency plans in, if somebody breaks or their auto doesn't work, do that. But again, you can talk to the end of day on contingency plans. Make sure you drink more water. Again, like they are dehydrated. At around match 7 in double elim, I will come around with a big old case of water bottle. And we keep it for this very moment on the team. I'll bring a case of water around. Who wants water? And by the time I'm done, I don't have any water left. Everybody's grabbing this water bottle, and they're chugging it, and they're moving on. Make sure you get everybody involved, especially at Worlds when you get to the 4 alliances. Make sure your alliance feels like a cohesive unit, and everybody is engaged. You don't want bad apples being poisoned in your alliance on Saturday. Make sure everyone's there. Check in your teammates. I think Aaron Lagerbots, I just saw this at Worlds recently. I think even they shot back at me on like, I constantly went over and was like, is everything okay? Lagerbots, you good? Nishoba, you good? Just between matches, is anything on fire in your robot? Do I need to bring parts of my build team, of my pit people to come help you? Check on your team members throughout that time, because they might be working in the pit and they might have too much pride to ask for help. So check on them and see what's going on. And then offer more water. So we all like to watch videos. So I'm going to go through some terms that kind of come up. We're going to go through zone offenses, what that looks like, choke points, cycle routes, finding weaknesses. There's a whole new passing thing that came about last year, kind of came about in 2012 when the balls were happening with Bomb Squad and whatnot. And then short cycling, which was massive this year. So zone offense, you kind of saw it earlier. You take the field. It's a common term used in basketball and other sports, but zone out the field so there's less crossing going on. We are going to double time this because robots in this time frame were slow. Okay, so everyone's doing their auto thing. We were on the red alliance. This is the only video strike for us. Everything else is everybody else. Rush goes far. We stay home. And a robot on the bottom is playing defense. They are just trying to contain our resources. Rush always works far. I work the near side. And the third guy, he's either moving cubes or he's trying to slow the other guys down on the scale because you want that scale in your favor. But this is a zone offense. Rush is far, I'm home, and the defender is just causing as much havoc as they can to slow it down. This is nearly a mimic copy of what Robo Wranglers and Poofs ran in 2018. Yeah, Javian, yep. I had the luxury of being in a hospital while you guys were in Houston. We would have smoked you.
That's not what you said in 18.
So, and then Endgame, everyone's got assignments and they go up. Right? So that is a typical zone offense. You zone out the field. You don't want to cross pass to make things go slower. Choke points. There's a lot of choke points in the game. This past year, we had one loading station, 2024. You had everybody trying to go to one place to get rings. There's multiple choke points. This is the video from an off-season event at WMRI, and it's the greatest video because all it is a video on the defender playing a choke point for the entirety of the match. Again, it's 2017. Robots are slow, and there's no swerve drive, and it's boring. So 4004 there is going to be the one playing the choke point. They just sit between that airship and that wall. And you say, here's that white line. You stay there, and you just go back and forth. You don't do anything else. You just slow down the gear runners. And it's just textbook. And keep in mind, this is double speed, and they're just doing really nasty things to the other guys. Your third robot will win and lose the tournament for you. They are, at some points, they are the most important robot on the field. Because you know what your robot's capable of. You know who your first pick is capable of. You know that they're a powerhouse team probably that's coming with you. Your third bot is not going to be that machine. They can give you a ton of penalties. They will miss their climb. They will have CAN bus problems. Their batteries will get disconnected. Belts will break. Sorry, Aaron. All those things happen, but your third bot can lose you the event. They can also win you the event. And at some points, they need the most coaching over anybody. And there's oftentimes, I will leave my drive team to go coach that third robot. And my drive team and the operator will need to execute what they need to do. Because that third robot is the most important one, trying to make the X factor of what's going on. Cycle routes. If you're doing long paths, 2024, 2016, who's driving where? Again, with the first 20 seconds, you don't want to cross paths. Cycle routes, same game. Figure out what lanes you're going to go. Again, no swerve drives yet. Everyone's tanky and slow. So this is, we're looking at the Red Alliance. So this is BeachBots, Robotiers, and Cleveland's team. 120 will always be going through the low bar on the top. That's all they did all day for them, is just top side low bar runs. Robotiers would shoot long range, and 330 would come up and shoot close. Any rebounds was on 330 to pick up. So you want to make sure whoever your best shooter is, that they're the designated rebounder. Don't let the guy that takes 5 shots and misses 4 of them be the rebound guy, because they're just going to miss more. So whoever's the best scoring machine needs to be doing the rebounds. So 330 stayed close and poached any balls. 120 stayed in their lane on the top side. And then Robotiers coming over the rock wall and shooting far. They didn't change the strategy dramatically during their win to Worlds. They just kept doing this more and more and more and just efficient about it. But they never crossed paths. You never see red robots hitting red robots. They're not doing self-inflicting harm. So stay in your lanes, play to where you need to be. This happened last year quite a bit. You would see reefs get zoned off into 3s. You'd have cycle paths. When you get coral, how are you coming around? But figure out your cycle paths. Don't hurt your own alliance by getting in each other's way. And then they do the whole sky jam. Good for them. Okay, this one's a little bit more dated, and it's going to be a little more pixely, because 2010 was old. So everybody knows 469's game-breaking robot where they catch soccer balls and they rescore them, right? And so a ball would come in, they'd catch it, and they'd rescore it. We talked about how you want to schedule your first 20 seconds, but right now we're trying to find weaknesses inside the machines, and this can be a variety of things. This used to be drivetrain selection if you had, Omni wheels and Mecanums, especially when we were running Swerve Drive and all of you weren't. That was fun. What motors are they using? Are they using Sims? Are they using brushless? Do they have a height problem and a shot location? We've been bit by that, where our shot location was really low and it can be blocked. So can you capitalize on top of that? Do they have a good grip on the game piece? I think Al's been talking about it a few times this weekend, where if you hit a team hard enough, they will drop a game piece. So how good is the grip? And then habitual movements. First 20 seconds are scripted. That's great, but that can also be a weakness, because the other alliance knows what you're going to do at that time. So just be ready in case they try to intervene in those first 20 seconds, because they're going to read you like a book. So in this video, since it happens in auto here, oh, no, go back. Why did we go? I know. Hold on, we'll get back to it. Yes. Okay. Pause. So those who aren't familiar with the game, 469 is the red robot in the center. In auto, they are going to shoot their 2 soccer balls to the far side of the field and then park underneath where the ball would come down and redirect the ball, and at that point, you've lost. You've lost at that point, if that happens. I was down at Worlds this year with 141. 141 is the blue robot in the center. And we had to play against 469. And we didn't have much business winning this match. We had a programmer who made this auton on the fly before we had all the WPI swerve drives. But we're going to shoot our ball, and we're going to park our robot right where they want to go. That's a habitual movement. You know what they're doing in auto, and how are you going to stop them? We'll speed up, because at this point, again, and all we're now trying to do is just play zone defense, keep them away from their spot. Don't let them get there. That's it. If they get rolling and they get the ball scoring, they become unstoppable. I think we ended up being ranked, 64 out of 70 or something like that when this is all said and done. But we were picked to be in the elims because we were the only ones that had any capability of stopping them. Because everybody on that field knew if you were going to get to Einstein, you had to go through that thing. They still beat us in the semis, though. Robotics came and set a really good pick and let 469 get in their spot. But it was habitual movement on my part, right? Because I showed it, and now they know what we're doing, and they countered. So people are happy. So just be careful about what habitual movements you do. This can be a driver thing. It can be a driver tendencies. It can be what you're doing in the first 20 seconds. Know that that could be exploited at some point and have countermeasures, and how do you play against that if that happens. So this is new, because last time I did this presentation was in 2023, and there's been a couple of games since then. The passing in 2024 primarily came up, I think, with 2468, and was it Robochargers they were passing to, right? When they were doing it early in the districts, and we're like, there's no way that becomes a thing. That seems silly, that you'd pass game pieces and they're vulnerable. Well, boy, did it become a good thing. 2012, this happened a little bit. 2014 doesn't count, because that was a passing game inside the rules. But you're trying to essentially move resources from one end to the other. And the reason this works is that you are decreasing your travel time. As long as that rings through the air, you're doubling your travel time, right? And this is for Mike, because there was one in here earlier that was not good for him. So swerve drive robots, now everyone's going really fast. It's really cool. Archimedes this year putting up massive scores. Double passers going to Citrus. They had Barker in 4206 passing to them. And Blue was so good at it, like they were stacking notes on top of notes as far as where their landing spot was in the corner. This is game dependent. You obviously can't pass in this game. It'd be silly to like give Coral handoff, right? But depending on the game, this can become important. It can give you huge high scores. You're moving your resources faster than you would have if you were just raw driving from down the field. It's hard to practice. So how do you do this at home? How do you know if this works? You have to go to more events to execute this, or be able to bring in more teams to a facility to practice this. You can practice one side of it, and you can just shoot rings all day, but then no one's receiving. So more matches, the better, and you're just refining it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, as we know, this was not the winning strategy that came out of it. This is very much a rock, paper, scissors game. Congratulations, 3, 2, 1. But that was massive, the passing, and that was never really done in FRC before. That is the first year that this became a new thing for everybody. So it was something that I think when Sam there was on our team in 2023 and 2024, we kind of came up with this term called short cycling. And what is short cycling? It is straight up the shortest path from point A to point B. This year we saw that in spades because everybody who had a ground intake kicked everyone's butt who had a funnel because they were short cycling the coral every single time. I think I was talking to Robotics at IRI. Like our best match at home was like 20 game pieces in a match. And then I talked to Robotics and they're like, oh, we put up 30. I'm like, I'm never doing 30. So short cycling, really important. It'll add up time to your cycles, but we're actually going to be looking at OP in 2023 because there wasn't a ton of people doing it. Sorry if like someone's in here who's in the video. Everyone's got servo drive again. Everything looks really cool, right? And we're tanks. So OP is the white robot. They're on that teeter-totter right now. You had to go all the way to the other side of the field to get game pieces. You couldn't throw them. Majority of teams would go to the shelf. They'd bang it on the driver's station wall. They'd break it. First would get mad. And then OP would go a short distance. They would go just far enough where the cone would drop on the ground or a cube would drop on the ground. You think to yourself that's not a big deal because they're only traveling 5 feet less per cycle. But over the course of an entire match, those 5 feet are going to add up to an additional 2 cycles, right? So individual cycles, not a lot of big cycle time gain, but over the course of the entirety, it's huge. So anytime you can figure out how to cycle just a little bit shorter for whatever reason to increase your cycle time just a little bit is huge. So find places in your architecture and in your driver's meeting and in your practices at home, how can you become a little bit faster? Because you might be able to get another cycle out of it. And OP just architected it this way, as we know. They're pretty good. And we saw a ton of short cycling this year. And over the course of the match, they're going to get more cycles on you, and that's really all it took in this year's game when super cycling or supercharging came in. And just that little bit is what helps. What I also love is the Endgame here, if we can get to it. So OP does their last game piece here. OP is up like 80 points, and they're not going to do the double bridge climb. And if you notice when they went to climb, I think they went to climb at like 15 seconds. The red team goes on the teeter-totter. Way early, but again, like the match is locked, and they want to secure that last ranking point. Don't put that to chance. Don't push it when you don't need to. So, as the game begins, if we ever go back and watch a week 1 match, we are all terrible week 1. We all can agree we improved greatly from week 1. So how do you plan that? How do you move from week 1 to a championship strategy? Do you have enough robot when you get there? So you show up, are you going to do well week 1? Because your week 1 robot would not have done well at the World Championship. Can you be faster? We talked about short cycling. Where can you find time to get faster? Be very nitpicky on what's going on. I'll go into film review on the next slide on how we go about finding that time. Some of it is mechanical with the Open Alliance coming out. There's lots of resources now to get better. We all saw Mad Jack in the Bot had the wheel intake thing for cages, right? And Rush had things, similar designs, and then everybody copied it, right? So figure out what your mechanical team can do, because the mechanical team isn't that busy once the robot's done. So figure out how you can make refinements, and figure out when your robot's going to peak. This was huge in 2015 when teams were like, I can put up 2 stacks of 6 totes and cans on top, but they were never going to get any faster. So make sure you peak at the right time. We've messed this up. We've peaked at IRI when we should have been peaking at Worlds. Make sure your robot, during its time frame of being a robot, is its best at the World Championship, not after. So don't peak too soon. Don't peak week 1 and have a really good week 1 robot, because that week 1 robot might not be that great by the time you get to World Championship. So be ready to iterate and don't like sit on your rewards that you have. Like you got to keep pushing yourself because everyone else is. I think Miss Daisy did a presentation earlier in the 10-minute thing. He talked about how they do film review. We run 2 tablets. One tablet is in the stands, and it films the entirety of the field and just the entirety of what's going on. The second tablet is field side, and that is solely focused on your robot. Once that match is done, those 2 students get together, They airdrop that video, so now the video is on 2 tablets. And you're asking, why does that matter? It's because the programmers and the pit people want to see the video. So they need to watch the video just like your drive team needs to watch it, because they're trying to figure out what's going on. We've added a GoPro this year underneath our coral end effector, so when we missed coral, we knew how far it was off left and right, and from that, the programmers would adjust individually on the reef which way the coral needs to move to score in case one reef was tiered out. Film review is huge when you sit down with your drive team and talk it out, but don't take too long. When we get home, I think somebody called like a postpartum meeting or like just some, what was it? Postmortem. Postmortem, yeah. There was a postmortem meeting going on. Yeah, so they go back. So we'll sit down with our drive team and just like talk through all the nitty-gritty bad stuff. I'll sit down, and we did this I think only at our first event this year, but not later. We use the mechanical advantage system, so we have the mechanical scope, or whatever you guys want to call it, advantage scope. And we will time when we had a bad thing happen in our match to that section so that we can see what happened. And I'm talking like after our first event, like we had like 100 plus mistakes that we had made during that time frame. Everything from we drove the wrong path, we scored the wrong coral, we double scored, we didn't hit our climb, programmers messed up, build team messed up. So label what went wrong in a spreadsheet, and then label who's responsible for it. Is the build team at fault? Is the programming team at fault? Is the build team at fault? It can be all 3 of them, right? Figure out every little thing that went wrong, write it down, and then fix it. And if it's a STEM problem or a problem that's been around for a long time, because like your CAN bus broke, that's something that can be fixed next year as well. So if it's something that you can also figure out and solve in the future, do that. But again, film it, get the video ready. Look at how you lost matches too. So why did you lose? Was it something in your control you could have done? But that is it. That is my email. You guys can email me anytime with any questions. This is my own QR code. This is not one of the QR codes that Sam has been pilfering out to you guys lately. This is just a review on my session, and if you liked it or things you want to see differently, but this is just me personally for what's going on. And we got like 5 minutes left, 10 minutes left. So open it up to Q&A. You can ask me anything you want. Okay, who's got a microphone to hand out?
Repeat the question for now.
Okay, we'll go up here so I can hear you.
So when you're selecting drivers, you said that their parents buying it is critical.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do when the parents hate their student being a driver?
They're probably not going to be the driver.
Just say no?
Yeah. Like if they're not, they need to put time into practice. And if they can't put it in practice, I'd rather have the kid that can put in twice the hours than the kid that can't. On top of that, we also selected our new driver for next season last week. Don't select driver during the build season. Terrible idea. Select your driver now, make him play in the off seasons, and if they don't do okay, then you can reevaluate it, but don't do that during the build season. Yeah.
So related to that, how do you select your drivers and how many seasons do you have them play?
They go through a test. So I'll give them like a test from a game that none of the team members know. So this past one was like the 2017 game. It's not necessarily a pass-fail. It's more of like, did you put in any work into studying, right? We'll also do like a practical test where they'll come and like actually physically drive the robot, and we'll give them time within the last month to come in and drive as well. So we'll make them go through a 2-minute match. But again, like the day they take the drive test to be the driver is not the deciding factor of picking them. It's all the other times they've driven. How have they practiced? How much have they been here? Are they putting in the time? So it's just an accumulation of all that time leading up to it. That answer your question?
Yeah.
Hi. I recently, in the postseason, I got a chance to be a drive coach for the first time for a competition that we attended. However, in the preparation for it, I was trying to get like the absolute best idea of what is my role as a drive coach during like the actual competition time. But when it came around to the actual competition, I found myself in a bit of a situation where I was looking at the FRC resources in terms of like the definition and the role of the drive coach, as well as also online forums about what people say, like what the drive coach does at the actual competition. But I'm trying to find like a fine line between letting the students do most of the work, because my team is heavily supports the idea of like student-led. So like everything is done by the students unless a mentor really has to come in with something that like is really more so like a coach's versus like coach/mentor's job. So I would say, what is exactly the fine line between like overstepping as a mentor versus like where you would come in, and like what would you usually do, especially when it comes to strategizing? I'm in my mind, whenever I do strategizing with my team, I'm trying to make sure that I'm sharing my opinion of what I saw on the field, but also not overstepping in terms of like, you do this just because I said so, because I don't want to do that. I still want to give students a chance to actually think about what kind of strategy would be the best to do for the match.
Yep. So a lot of that you can do before you get to an event. You don't have to. A lot of stuff you discuss can be just you sitting down with your drive team and talk things out. And you can bring up scenarios to them and have them start thinking about that before they get to the event. Watch videos of other people playing if you haven't competed yet, or there's matches to go see, week 0, week 1s. Run them through scenarios, run them through situations. Push them as far as you can so they have the skills and that they are ready to do what they need to do. That way you don't have to step in. Like I said, I don't necessarily go to the qualification strategy meetings every time, but there's a lot of work to prep those students to do a good job. So take the time and like prep them and make it comfortable for them to go do those jobs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep. Goodness, people. We're gonna go over here to the
You're just gonna make me
guy
run
with the
back and
camera.
forth the whole time.
I know.
So coming back to the drive team selection process, you said you used the 2017 game as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just say a few more words about kind of what that quiz looked like, or what
Okay.
that process worked, how that worked?
So, one, I didn't make the test. I stole it off Chief Delphi. And then took things out that I didn't like. So some of it is like rule questions on like, okay, how much is this point worth? Where can you drive and not drive? It depends who you're testing to. Like if you're just trying to fill a human player, then they don't need to do where the robot can and can't go, right? So curtail it to what the role is. But the test was how much is fuel worth? How much are gears worth? You also start asking questions to kind of get in their head. What is your ideal alliance? How would you want to play the game? How do you win worlds? And make sure that they've got some strategic thought in them, that they've done some homework on how they would want to play the game. I think you asked earlier about how long their driver. They are essentially the driver until they do bad things. So we don't try out new drivers every year. If they go and they do poorly, then we will reevaluate, but we don't try and switch drivers or reintroduce tryouts year after year.
All right, so your driver has just graduated. Oh, hey, thanks. Your driver's just graduated.
Yep.
You're testing for a new one. Do you put any weight into where they are in school? Like, let's say you've got two that are relatively close. One's a senior, one's a freshman. The senior is better. How do you make that choice? Is it better to have them stay as a driver for longer, or do you truly just go with who is the best?
So like we just graduated a senior, but we didn't do like tryouts last summer. Like we let the driver run out until they've aged out of the program. Driver, operator, human player. Again, unless they do horrendous things, then we'll reevaluate. When we did driver tryouts 2 weeks ago, last week, the person that won it deserved it. So you put in the best player to take that role. And if it's a freshman, if it's a senior, like you got to make next season the best season, unless you want to do a down season because you want to train somebody up, but you put in the best person that's on your team.
Do you have a in like a do you have like most of the sports teams, they have like the varsity, JV, or first string, second string, like always a backup there that's ready at any point in time?
Nope, that's a terrifying problem we have because we don't. Yep, it's hard to share reps away from your primary driver to give somebody else drive time who may never touch the field.
What would be your advice on presenting some of these strategies to students for a team that doesn't have a mentor as the drive coach?
Yep. Bring this presentation to them. Show them these examples of what a zone offense is and what the defenses are. Show them film of old stuff.
Yeah, so I just had a question. Strike Force obviously played defense this year as part of your strategy. And I think a lot of teams here kind of get put into that role at times. So where along your season did you make that a priority? And then how do you practice it?
Once Citrus was kicking our butt at Coral. The moment we couldn't out-Coral these guys with ground intakes, we knew we were in trouble. We had to make 2 decisions. I think Dave talked about this at one time as well when they made their chance or their architect change going to Worlds. We either needed to put time into building a ground intake or we needed to pivot and change our strategy. So the moment we were just another middle-of-the-road Coral robot and we looked like everybody else, that's when we changed. So going into states for DCMP was when we decided we want to go take algae because you knew you were going to get a really good Coral robot on the backside.
When it comes to overall like drive team chemistry, I mean obviously that's something that you can't really teach, but is that something that you, when you have your operator, you know, you have everyone there, you know, how important is that? Does that become an issue? Is that something where you see like there's just personality clashes that just don't work? Or?
There is, I mean, there's going to be personality clashes, but you don't dictate who's driver or operator over that. They just kind of got to learn how to be adults and deal with each other. You know, as part of what's going on. You try and let them know that they can come to you over anything. Hey, so-and-so didn't do this, I don't like that. And then you just try and snuff that out. And you need to open up communication with them. Because as we know, we get in the adult world and you're going to find people you don't like, but you still got to work with them, do the same time as you would as drivers.
At competition, how involved is your drive team in pit and robot maintenance and that kind of stuff, or do you try to keep that separate?
Is the robot on fire or not?
I don't know, is it?
It hasn't been lately. If we're in elims, because you're only allowed to have 3 pit people, the drive team needs to be somewhat competent to come help if things go bad, right? So if the robot's normal tasks between matches, fine. But if the robot has a catastrophic arm braking failure, like we did at IRI, then and they don't have access to get back to the pit, then the drive team's got to come and help. So they need to be ready, but they shouldn't be the primary. They need to be like triage nurses.
I have 2 questions for you. The first one is you talked about not talking about contingency plans forever. How much effort is a good amount of effort to put into contingency plans, especially when you're trying to make a really long run at the World Championship?
Sure.
And the second question,
Yeah.
sorry, is when you do film reviews, are there ever situations where you will drop them and time doesn't allow for that between matches?
Yeah, so like during playoffs, it's really hard to because you don't got a lot of time to do it, or if it's a fast turn match turnaround. If the match was like great, we're probably not going to review it because we know it went well. If something went wrong, you might just go into just a certain section of it and be like, why did we miss the climb? So depends on your break and if you can do it or not. If you can't, you just got to move on and get ready for the next match. And that's why we do everything post much deeper. And then your first question was contingency plans. I spend a lot of time not sleeping before I go to sleep thinking about contingency plans. If I'm with so-and-so and they don't do this and they don't do that, what am I going to do? You talk it with your drive team personally within your team. Hey, if this guy breaks. I think we were at IRI and Super Duper broke and immediately swapped, right? That just has to be in your head as a drive coach on running simulations as much as you can in your head to be ready to react to whatever happens.
So you talked previously about, having drivers that, unless they do something like terrible.
Yeah.
Have you been in those types of situations, and kind of how do you handle that, especially if it's like in the middle of a season, you have some sort of disciplinary thing or something like that?
We have not. We have not been in a situation where during the season we're trying to swap somebody, because at that point they still have the most reps with the robot. We've had human players that left to go to prom at times, and you bring in somebody else, but you can teach a human pretty quick because they're malleable compared to the robots. But we've never had that situation that I can speak of.
Yeah, you can do a couple more. We're just going to lunch, so
Yeah,
you can do a couple more.
again, like we can go.
You get a point to it. People are going to blame me for picking the wrong people the next question, so you're going to start pointing.
That's fine. I can take the blame. Whatever. I'll start pointing.
So I'm wondering about like drive team morale. I know you talked about like not dwelling too long on each match, like focusing on the current match and then taking the lessons and moving on. But if the same struggles come up match after match, that can start to wear down on the driver's mentality, or if they start losing a lot of matches, even if they're doing things well. How do you handle drive team mentality and morale?
Like, how do you pull them out of that? Because
Yeah.
they've been like double scoring Coral all day. You need to kind of get in their head and like, look, man, like I understand you've been having this problem with double scoring the Coral. You need to come back. We need to play this next match, and you need to start simplifying it for them. You need to make sure you get a good match under their belt. So slow the game down for them. Give them tasks that are achievable. That way they can get their confidence back in what they're doing. And also try not to put them in those situations where they're having issues if you can. You got a question over here? Yeah.
So I know you mentioned Statbotics earlier, and I know my team and a couple other teams have banned our drivers from looking at Statbotics. What are your
When I was in
thoughts
high
on
school,
this?
we weren't even allowed to look at the rankings. So I've been on the extreme of like the drive team just wants to be in like a silo and know nothing. It inevitably comes up because people are looking at it. You got to figure out what works for you. I'll look at Statbotics just to figure out, do I need to try harder in a certain qualification match because it's going to be more of a struggle. It just kind of gives you a quick gut check of like what's about to come up. Like, do we need to try something different, especially when we get to like Worlds when you don't know half the teams in your division and you've got 2 hours between matches to think about it. In districts, you know everybody in and out. So like you look at the match schedule and you're like, yep, this was going to be a tough one. We're going to need to do something about it. So I use it as like a first glance of what actions we should be taking.
How much detail do you go into on your like 20-second script for the beginning of the match? And that's the first 20 seconds of teleop, correct?
It's essentially the first cycle. Maybe the first 1.5 cycles, like for this year at Worlds, like who's moving where, who's going to take what algae, and then what is their path to the barge to make sure you're out of the way. Again, after that, who knows? But you want to stay out of each other's way in the first 20 seconds so you can get into a fluid motion quickly. So probably the first 1.5 cycles.
Do you do any like drive team bonding or any kind of exercises away from the robot to kind of like develop cohesiveness? I know what I would do with my students, I'd have them play video games. One person does keyboard, one person does the mouse.
No, we don't really like sit down and do like a cohesive like unit grow. Like I'll make them go wash the drive team water bottles every once in a while before events, and they do okay at that. Then I have to wash them. But I think the cohesiveness is just going to come from reps with the robot, right? And so like you can artificially change it by making them go play games or do keyboard mouse stuff, make them play goofy games to try and bond, but like they're going to bond naturally because you're already doing practice reps with the robot. So why not kill 2 birds, 1 stone, get reps and build camaraderie? Yeah.
So, like, I guess regarding the building and kind of competition, like,
Can you just give us a sense of like what your schedule, like what's the schedule like as like, are you starting on practice spot for like 1 to 2 weeks? Is that just drive chassis? Is that like
Okay.
Where are you at, you know, going into the build season in order to get all those reps and build up all that teamwork and whatnot?
So on Strike Force, we build 2 robots. We build a practice robot and then a competition robot. The competition robot's typically 2 weeks behind the practice robot. So we build the practice robot, learn all the things, wire it ugly, get it done, high fidelity prototype, and the drive team will practice with that as much as they can until they kill it, and then they will get the competition robot. If you can do driving sessions without the competition robot, let's say last year's robot, just to start learning how am I going to go to the reef back and forth. Take an older robot, make him go through the cycle routes, or make him go through his own offense. How are you going to get to the reef? You can also walk it out. You don't necessarily have to have a physical robot. This year's game was really nice because you could like walk through the game with them. It's like, here's the coral, where are you putting it? Where are you going next? And they can physically walk and play the game before the robot is available.
All right, Cory, I think that's it for time. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. All right, so next we have the barbecue. For those that were here last year, it's in the same place. For those that are new, it's right downstairs out back. So please join us, and thank you again, Cory. That was wonderful.